great moment to celebrate, a triumphant sense of achievement, seasoned with introspection on many a task half done. Half a century of independence. What dominates, however, is a sense of confidence on a path chosen out of our own free will. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, democratic republic, and to secure to all its citizens justice, social, economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individual and the unity of the nation. In our Constituent Assembly, this 26th day of November 1949, to hereby adopt, enact and give to ourselves this Constitution. Close on the heels of deliverance, the memory of starvation and of a few million deaths due to famine in the last decade of colonial rule were too close for comfort. Agricultural practices were primitive and had been stagnant for centuries. The nation was importing even safety pins and bicycles. Average life expectancy at the midnight hour of freedom was below 30 years. Less than 1/4 of the population was literate. In this backdrop, India's 360 million people had two political and economic models available to follow in contemporary history. The planned socialist model of the Soviet Union and the free market economy of the Western world. Jawaharlal Nehru took a momentous decision to adopt a mixed economy where both government enterprise and private enterprise would function concurrently. He conceived of a system of combining the economic austerity of the East with the social and political free institutions of the West. The mixed economy formula envisaged major infrastructural development under the public sector and other industries under private initiative. About 50,000 million rupees were invested in the public sector undertakings of the government in the first 3 decades of freedom. This was entirely new investment, not involved in any nationalization of existing industry. Over 100 gigantic industries came up. The private entrepreneurs invested 4 times more than the government during the same period in industrial and manufacturing activities, creating a major record of production. More than all this, these initial years of planned development gave a sense of national direction and social priorities in the interest of equity and justice. In the case of some of the newly industrialized countries in recent decades, democracy had taken a back seat in practice, the country's economy being managed like profit-oriented corporate sectors. On the other hand, India has remained uncompromising in its commitment to democracy. In the early years, immediately after independence, India had to groom entrepreneurial talents who would, in later years, aspire for greater market freedom. That was the significant contribution of a concept of mixed economy. However, while some of the major public sector undertakings proved their performance levels, many others began to lose heavily. While the dominance of the public sector and the dependence of private sector on permits, licenses and controls went too far, inhibiting natural industrial growth, the early decades of government support, particularly support for a wide variety of small-scale industries across the board, developed a sophisticated clan of entrepreneurs. The government invested in areas of development where private capital, hungering for quick returns, did not care to enter, since in fields like power, irrigation, transport and agricultural improvement, profits were low and the period of gestation too long. India invested in a wide variety of power projects, hydel and thermal. India's annual production of electricity has gone up from under 5 billion kilowatt hours to over 415 billion kilowatt hours. India also invested in many nuclear power plants, some of the later ones being entirely of indigenous design and construction. Non-conventional and clean sources of energy have begun to be tapped wherever the potential exists, creating wind farms and solar energy farms. The production of crude oil has gone up from an insignificant 300,000 tons in 1950 to over 35 million tons in 1996. The single most remarkable achievement in India in the last half a century is the transformation of the food and agriculture situation. Five decades ago, India was substantially dependent on imported food grains, distributed on a rationed basis to its 360 million people. Today, India has surplus food grains for export after consumption by its nearly 1 billion people.
In the 1960s, India approached the United States for food aid. Under Public Law 480, America shipped wheat to India on a massive scale on a long-term soft loan basis. But India could not hope to permanently depend on such imported food grains. This was the time when high-yielding varieties of wheat and rice were being produced in the laboratories of the world.
The statesmen and agricultural scientists of India evolved a revolutionary experiment to popularize the new varieties of seeds as well as new farming methods among Indian farmers. The Western economists argued that a whole generation of educated farmers toiled to popularize scientific farming methods in the advanced countries. Since the Indian farmer was not much educated and was highly conservative and tradition-bound, the experts argued that it may take endless time to propagate the new methods. The Soviet advice was to nationalize all the agricultural lands and to organize cooperative farming on a massive scale. But committed as India was to the right to property, India began to tread her own path. Initially, 1,000 demonstration plots of 1 acre each were chosen from poor farmers' fields and cultivated with government inputs to convince the farmers that their new methods would result in dramatic yield. Indeed, dramatic it was, not only in terms of the success of the chosen demonstration plots, but in terms of the speed with which farmers adopted the new technologies. The use of new seeds and chemical fertilizers spread like wildfire. Rural areas witnessed significant changes in agricultural operations. Whereas tractors were objects of novelty in India half a century ago, today, with over 1.2 million tractors, India ranks 7th in the world in its tractor population. India invested heavily in tapping its water resources in terms of groundwater and in terms of small and very large dams across major rivers. India has brought 66% of land with irrigation potential under cultivation with irrigation. 20% of the irrigated land in the world is in India today, getting India the second rank in this sphere among the Comity of Nations. Another major supporting activity for agriculture is fertilizer production. India manufactures 11 million tons of fertilizer per year and ranks third among the nations of the world in fertilizer consumption. Agricultural research at the laboratory level and in field conditions continues to pay dividends. India's success in the Green Revolution is almost a miracle, focusing attention on a few social dimensions, reflecting the resilience of an ancient culture when it transforms itself into a modern nation. First, it is the success of Indian agricultural scientists in their passion to be socially responsive. It is a tribute to a generation of Indian statesmen and public servants who worked with dedication and integrity. More than anything, it is the victory of the millions of hard-working Indian farmers who adopted modern methods with innovation, speed and efficiency. Food grains production in India grew up from about 50 million tons in 1950 to over 190 million tons in 1996. Although this is a phenomenal increase in food production, India has to feed almost 1 billion people in 1998, as against 360 million half a century ago. Due to one of the largest ever birth control programs in human history undertaken by any country, India's birth rate has come down from 40 per thousand in 1947 to about 27 per thousand in 1996. During the same period, due to improved medical and health care, the death rate has come down from 28 per thousand to about 7.5 per thousand. Average life expectancy has more than doubled to 62 years in these 5 decades. The net addition by way of annual growth of population has come down to about 1.8% in 1996. India also has many hospitals with state-of-the-art equipment and facilities, with doctors and surgeons of international reputation. There are referral hospitals where complicated surgery and organ transplants are done. Today, India is also reviving with vigor its ancient systems of holistic medicine, such as Ayurveda, Unani and Siddha, which have proven their efficacy in treating many ailments. Women have played an equal role in every aspect of India's takeoff. Gender equality has been built into the Constitution of India. True, there is a gap between the ideals enshrined therein and the hard reality of daily life. But indications are that women are on the road to irreversible progress. The empowerment of women begins at the grassroots level, where non-governmental agencies have accomplished as much, if not more, than official departments. With 108 million students at the first level of education in schools, India ranks second in the world in the number of children at this level. But it has not accomplished the cherished goal of 100% elementary education for all, in spite of a wide variety of schools, from simple village schools to sophisticated urban schools. India's record is indeed impressive in the realm of higher education. The number of universities has gone up from 25 to 200. The number of colleges from 700 to 6,000. And the students' enrollment in colleges has jumped from under 200,000 50 years ago to over a staggering 5 million in 1996. The facilities at many of these institutions of higher learning are often comparable to the best in the world. With over 3 million productive individuals qualified in science and technology, India ranks high in such scientific manpower. This is also reflected by the tremendous strides made by India in the realm of the new threshold areas of science and applied technology, such as atomic energy and space. India has several indigenously designed satellites of her own in orbit for communications, weather forecasting, and so on. In the Golden Jubilee year of independence, India successfully launched a satellite from its own launch pad.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now.
Indeed, there are many colorful threads to the tapestry that is India today. The source of joy in India's underlying unity is the freedom of choice in everything, be it the arts, the lifestyles, or of course, political affiliations.
Drawing a societal balance sheet of the last half a century, some fundamental things stand out. India's exemplary commitment to democracy, 11 peaceful elections to the union government, several more to the state legislatures, different political parties in power and out of it at different times, some strong institutional frameworks with high caliber and credibility, such as the Election Commission, which has autonomous powers and functions, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, who sometimes questions the financial propriety of governmental costs, a completely independent judiciary, which has a tradition of upholding the rule of law, an unfettered and proactive press, which enjoys and enforces its freedom of speech as a true voice of the people. In fact, India has indeed come a long way, but we do have miles to go.
It is important for us to remember, and the world has recognized this, it is a matter of great pride that we are the largest democracy. Largest not only numerically, but also we are the first country in the world which from the first day resorted to adult franchise. There were many professors of doom who told us that how can a country which is literate, which is not so literate, where the backwardness is there, how can people vote? Time and again the Indian population has proved that it takes right decisions. From the first day itself, women got a right to vote. There are not many countries in the world who can do it. How many years did it take one of the big democracies to give right to vote to blacks? How long did it take for Europe to give right of vote to women? I think it's a great pride.